3, 2, 1. On the 8th day of Flipmas, Watchtower gave to me 8 saints a milking, 7 halls a selling, 666 dedication, 5 golden apostasies. 4 publishers, 3 judicial hands, 2 witnesses, and part truth in an everlasting life tree. In the original song, The 12 Days of Christmas, that were rumored to be created as a covert way to remember the tenets of Christianity.
Though now debunked.
Yeah, well, we're moving downhill now, so hang on. But in the song, The 12 Days of Christmas, the 8 maids a-milking were said to represent the 8 beatitudes.
You mean beatitudes?
Oh no, I mean beatitudes.
The 8 beatitudes literally mean blessed, and sometimes rendered happy, are taken from what's called Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, and are recorded for us at Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 12.
Blessed is sort of one of those coined words that really isn't understood, and no wonder, because at least in the English language, we really don't have a word that accurately embodies the breadth of what's meant in the scriptures here. Blessed, as defined, means holy or consecrated or made holy.
Or you might think of declared pure.
However, the commonly understood definition of happy, like jovial, doesn't fit the bill either. But there is one definition of happy that does somewhat fit, in some instances, rather well. It's feeling contentment or having a sense of confidence or satisfaction. So the first definition being something that's inside yourself, and the second is being exuded toward you. In either case, it doesn't mean that at every displeasurable circumstance we meet, we have some sort of absent-minded euphoria, as if we're in some sort of a pot-smoking ego-death nirvana demonstrated by a phony plastered-on whitewash smile.
But back to our 8 maids a-milking. The Insight book says of milk, since milk promotes physical growth to maturity, elementary Christian doctrine is linked to milk for spiritual babes, which will strengthen them to grow to the point of being able to assimilate solid food, the deeper spiritual truths. The Apostle Peter, speaking to Christians, says, as newborn infants form a longing for the unadulterated milk belonging to the Word. God calls on spiritually thirsty ones to buy this growth-promoting spiritual milk, which, through his undeserved kindness, they can obtain without money and without price.
So those 8 maids are milking a blessing for you. So with that understanding, perhaps Tiffany could read through those for us. And after she reads each blessing, we'll show how the governing body works against that blessing in making it a beatitude, milking the victims spiritually dry.
Hence, 8 saints a-milking.
Now, we could go on and on in depth about how they milked the publishers, fleecing the flock for the new lake resort condos.
Getting jet-setted around the world.
Wearing Rolexes on their TV screen.
Binge liquor purchases.
No financial transparency at the top, etc., etc. But we're more concerned with how they fleece or milk the flock spiritually. Now we realize many of the things that we're going to mention here don't involve the governing body directly. Perhaps they're just, as some witnesses assert, the fall guys for bad elders, as if they're puppets for a larger deep state working behind the scenes. But given that these guys never lose their control till death, and their claims to be the modern Illuminati collective pope, and how our appeal letter invoked the governing body specifically, to us that shows they're the captains at the helm that deserve full court-martials for every spiritual death caused by a list on the ship that they refuse to write. So let's go through each of those blessings to show how they beatitude the milk of the Spirit out of you.
Matthew 5, starting in verse 3. Happy are those conscious of their spiritual need, since the kingdom of the heavens belongs to them.
I remember using this illustration in a comment once. You see a beautiful flock of geese flying overhead, and as you watch them fly over, a goose towards the back of the formation gets a draft of wind, spirit, let's say. Or perhaps he's just a little bit more rested from drafting, or maybe just a bit stronger at the moment. Whatever the case, the goose starts flying, moving up in position through the draft. Perhaps there's even a couple more geese that are strong as well, and they're following up through that. Then finally, as they move up through that draft, they peacefully get up towards the front, and the lead few geese start punching, kicking, and pull out a machine gun and blow them out of the air. You see, if you have a true spiritual need and Jehovah blesses that, instead of having a system that allows individual to express ideas to accelerate, whereby they filter out perhaps ones that are unscriptural and accept correct teachings that accelerate the thoughts to the top, nope. They kill the messenger, snuff out the truth if it threatens their authority, or even steal the idea for themselves in a corporate cutthroat move and give credit to the magic ball that they've set up in their Wednesday meetings. In this way, they try to totally snuff out the fire of the Spirit, completely knocking some from their spiritual flight. The next beatitude.
Happy are those who mourn, since they will be comforted.
Nope. Any who mourn in depression are simply beat with scriptures like Psalm 144:15, while they play minimal lip service to 1 Thessalonians 5:14, and they continue to run over any who may be depressed, even by their own abuses, that we serve the happy God.
Yeah, and if you're not happy, you're not spiritual.
Beatitude number 5.
Happy are the mild-tempered ones, since they will inherit the earth.
I'm sorry, you can be as mild as you want, but if you get it all animated toward them, it becomes the airplane scene out of the movie Anger Management. And if you're in a judicial setting, they will purposely punch every button they can think of and attempt to set you off. And if you remain composed, it matters not one bit, because the three conspiring princes, keen on protecting their own authority, will conspire to work one another up, looking for keywords in the shepherd book, like belligerent, to add to their notes, which you're not allowed to take. And even if you have a dead-on vocal recording that refutes what they say, no matter. You're the one who was not displaying God's Spirit because we said so, and no evidence to the contrary will be accepted, period.
Exclamation point.
Yeah. Beatitude number 6.
Happy are those hungering and thirsting for righteousness, since they will be filled.
Righteousness comes from the Latin words rit weiss, meaning right and wise. So for a Christian, what's right and wise in God's eyes? Justice definitely sits under that umbrella. But those of us searching for righteousness by justice in the modern day Sanhedrin can bear witness in the hundreds how this system has zero concern for righteousness as they leave the courts of justice empty. Beatitude number 7.
Happy are the merciful, since they will be shown mercy.
Once again, thousands can bear witness of how they were not treated mercifully by the legalistic checks in the shepherd the flock boxes that had them being treated not as individuals, but as numbers. But one worse than that comes next. Beatitude number 8.
Happy are the pure in heart, since they will see God.
Now, we totally get a warning to beware of a possible false step. But you can be pure as snow in your motives and in full joy of Jehovah still be violating any one of their unwritten, man-made, wash up to the elbows, date only in the Lord, can't walk into a sports bar, secular entertainment, dress and grooming rules that go beyond what's written. And then, when you violate any one of these unwritten, inconsistently locally enforced rules, the local Baals are supported as they publicly shame you and even threaten others with the same treatment if they don't soft shun you. with their main goal being to force you into the trap of the sin that they say they're trying to protect you from for not following their own man-made rules. Beatitude number 9.
Happy are the peaceable, since they will be called sons of God.
Peaceableness is being a peacemaker. No, I'm not talking about the gun, the peacemaker. However, instead of being peacemakers, true peacemakers, who view others as superior to them, how many times have the local stormtroopers headhunted anyone who asks any single question of a policy or trivial doctrine? Would you consider the North Korean government a peacemaker with its people? Oh, North Korea maintains internal peace, but would you call that biblical peacekeeping? As we get through 10 and 11, we like to be fair. As they say, fair is fair. And we believe when someone fulfills their role in Scripture, they deserve their due. So the governing body deserves kudos for living up to the following scriptures, as we'll show. Number 10.
Happy are those who have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, since the kingdom of the heavens belongs to them.
Now, we're not talking about them being persecuted. We're talking about them persecuting others for righteousness' sake. Check. Disfellowshipping for this organization has become what the certificate of divorce was for Pharisees. An allowance made by God for a man to divorce his wife for adultery or complete abandonment of the family? Nope, they used it to divorce on every sort of grounds, no matter how trivial. And so it is here with disfellowshipping. Anyone who says anything against them, or even questions one of their policies or obviously lame doctrines, gets DF'd. Verse 11.
Happy are you when people reproach you and persecute you and lyingly say every sort of wicked thing against you for my sake.
The authorities lyingly speaking everything against you. Check. We talk to so many active witnesses out there that are like the 7,000 others that wouldn't bend their knee to Baal. May Jehovah be with you. But once the hierarchy has it in for you, the soft slander starts and undermines any real justice. Under the guise of confidentiality, they keep from saying what's really going on behind the scenes by not saying anything specific, but instead use that confidentiality veil to blow the situation out of proportion with slander by saying things like, oh, it's bad. Oh, their moral compass is off. They have apostate thinking. They're hostile. This serves their purpose of creating a public persona of you so that they can then later gather information about anything you may have ever said. Never mind the fact that it's the same exact thing that everyone says, but it doesn't matter because they're not the ones on trial. Verse 12.
Rejoice and leap for joy, since your reward is great in the heavens. For in that way they persecuted the prophets prior to you.
The final check comes from God's own word, the Bible. As we've repeatedly said, the vast majority of the Bible is the prophets speaking against God's organization. So claiming that you're God's organization really doesn't have any validity whatsoever. And the similarities and attitudes are all too striking to ignore. The governing body has become what Christendom was to them. It's the classic tale of the abused has become the abuser.
Oh, but the elders will repeatedly parrot how humble the governing body is.
However, it's not when you're being praised by some sycophant that your humility shines. It's when you're being reviled. Look at Moses or David in those situations. And to any who would say that it's just the local elders who bear responsibility, Tiffany, would you please read Jeremiah 38, 4 through 6?
And the princes began to say to the king, let this man please be put to death, for that is how he is weakening the hands of the men of war who are left remaining in this city, and the hands of all the people, by speaking to them according to these words. For this man is one seeking not for the peace of the people, but for calamity. So King Zedekiah said, "Look, he's in your hands, for there is nothing at all in which the king himself can prevail against you." And they proceeded to take Jeremiah and throw him into the cistern of Melchijah, the son of the king, which was in the courtyard of the guard. So they let Jeremiah down by means of ropes. Now in the cistern there was no water, but mire, and Jeremiah began to sink down into the mire.
Now, in your mind, did King Zedekiah dodge responsibility there? I'm only the king. There's nothing I can do about it. We're only the governing body who's in charge of governing. Everything comes on us. We're the governors. And they're going to avoid responsibility? Not according to the Bible, and not according to the Watchtower.
So it's on the count of that the governing bodies, 8 saints of milking, are responsible for the
9th day of Flipmas Watchtower gave to me 9 boxes checking, 8 saints of milking, 7 halls of selling, 666 dedication, 5 golden apostasies, 4 publishers, 3 judicial hands, 2 witnesses, and part truth and an everlasting life tree.